Good evening, Virgo. The phone has been quiet, and the quiet has been doing what quiet always does when it goes on longer than expected, filling itself with the specific, circling, no good answer questions that silence produces in someone who cares. Did I do something? Do they still think about me? Have they moved on so completely that reaching out simply does not occur to them anymore? Or is something else happening? Something I cannot see from here? Something that has nothing to do with the story the silence has been telling? That explains the absence in a way that the worst case interpretation does not. Today we find out, not through speculation, through what spirit is bringing through for this collective with a specificity and a clarity that I did not expect when I first sat with this energy, and that I think many of you have needed to hear for longer than the silence has been going on. Take what is yours today. What resonates, let it settle the quiet rather than feed it. What does not, release it gently. But for those of you who have been living inside the specific daily what does it mean experience of a silence from someone who matters, this reading is entirely for you. Let me begin with the thing Spirit pressed forward most insistently, the thing it wanted said before the explanation, before the context, before anything that would soften or complicate it. The silence is not indifference. It has never been indifference. And the story the quiet has been constructing in the absence of information, the story that starts with they have not called and ends, through the dark and efficient logic of an anxious mind, with therefore they do not care, is not the true story. Not even close. Soft sigh. Now let me speak about what is actually happening, because here is what I feel when I sit with the energy of the person whose silence you have been living inside, and I want to deliver it with the specificity that changes how the silence feels, rather than the vagueness that simply adds another layer to the wondering. They are in something. Not a drama, not the kind of thing that would be visible from the outside, that would produce obvious signals of difficulty that you would have been able to register from where you are standing. The interior kind, the specific, invisible, this is happening in me and I cannot yet bring it to you kind of internal process that certain people go through when something significant is happening in their relationship to their own life, their own choices, their own understanding of what they want and what they are capable of. The kind that requires a quality of privacy and inwardness, that contact, real contact, the kind that they want to have with you would interrupt rather than facilitate. And I want to be specific about the nature of that internal process because there are different reasons people go quiet and they produce different qualities of silence, and it matters which one you are dealing with. This is not the silence of someone who is cooling off, not the deliberate, strategic, I am creating distance because I need less of this silence that produces a lighter, airier quality in the energy. What I feel in this person's silence is denser than that, heavier. The specific gravity of something that is occupying too much interior space for regular communication to happen naturally, of someone who is carrying something significant and has not yet arrived at the place where they can carry it and be fully present with you simultaneously. Because that is the thing about this person, and spirit is pressing this forward. Specifically, they do not want to come to you partial. Do not want to reach out from the middle of whatever they are moving through and offer you the fragmented, distracted, this is not my best version of themselves that the current state of their interior would produce. They know what they want to bring you. They know the quality of presence and attention and honesty they want the contact to carry. And they know, frustratingly, to both of you, that they are not yet in the place where they can bring it. Ah, hear them, because this voice has been wanting to reach you and has not yet found the moment that felt right, and Spirit is bringing it through today because the waiting has gone on long enough. I know I have been quiet. I know the quiet has not been kind, has not been the considerate. I am giving us both space kind of silence that comes with an explanation and a timeline and some reassurance that the silence is temporary and intentional rather than permanent and final. It has just been quiet, and I am sorry for that. Not because I have been indifferent to what the quiet might be producing in you. I have not been indifferent. The awareness of what the quiet is costing you has been part of what I have been carrying, part of what makes the current situation feel as heavy as it does. I think about reaching out every day. That is the honest version, not occasionally, not when the mood strikes, every day. And every day something stops me. Not hesitation about you, not uncertainty about what I feel or whether reaching out is something I want to do. Something about where I am, about the specific quality of what I would be bringing to the contact if I made it right now, which is not the quality I want to bring. Not the version of me that I want you to encounter on the other side of the silence. I am trying to get to a place where what I bring you is worth the wait, not perfect. I am not trying to manufacture a perfect moment that the reality of things cannot support, but honest, clear, carrying the full weight of what I feel without the interference of everything I have been working through, so that when I reach out, you get the real thing rather than the version of the real thing that comes filtered through a process that is not yet finished. I owe you the real thing, and I am not quite there yet. But I am closer today than I was yesterday, and I am not going anywhere. Soft sigh. Oh, feel what that carries, because that is not the voice of someone who has forgotten you or drifted or decided that the connection was not worth maintaining. That is the voice of someone who is holding you carefully in the private space of their own interior while they do the work that they believe the reaching out deserves to come after. who has their own standard for the quality of presence they want to bring to you, and who is, day by day, getting closer to meeting it. Now I want to speak to you, to the person who has been on the receiving end of the quiet and deserves more than the explanation, deserves the honest accounting of what the quiet has been producing and what the understanding of its true nature changes. You have been interpreting the silence through the worst available lens. Not because you are catastrophizing, you are not catastrophizing. Because the worst available lens is the one that an unexplained silence going on longer than expected from someone who matters naturally and almost inevitably produces. The mind needs a story. And in the absence of the true story, it constructs one from the available materials, which are, in the case of an unexplained silence, almost uniformly negative. They have moved on. They have lost interest. Whatever existed between us was not what I thought it was. None of those stories are accurate. None of them. And carrying them living inside their logic, making daily decisions about your own emotional state based on their conclusions, has been costing you something that the true story would not have required you to pay. Huh, put the false stories down. That is the specific invitation of this reading. Not because everything is resolved, the silence has not yet ended, and the contact has not yet come, but because the interpretation you have been applying to the silence is wrong. And carrying a wrong interpretation does not just cost you emotionally, it shapes how you hold yourself in relation to this person and this connection. Produces a quality of contraction and self protection and the gradual defensive. This is how I survive not knowing withdrawal that changes the field between you in ways that the true story does not warrant. Hold yourself differently with the specific, grounded, I now have accurate information quality of someone who understands what the silence actually is, not abandonment, not indifference. A person in process doing their own interior work, moving through something significant, holding you in the private space of what they are navigating while they work their way toward the place where reaching out becomes possible in the form they want it to take. That is the true story. And the true story, when it replaces the false one, changes how you carry the quiet. Changes it from something that feels like evidence of your own insignificance into something that is actually, and I want to say this clearly because I think it is one of the most important things in this reading, evidence of the opposite, of how much this person cares about the quality of what they bring to you, of how seriously they take the connection, of the specific and demanding standard they have for their own showing up, which is, if you look at it clearly, a form of respect for you, a refusal to bring you something partial when they know what the full thing looks like. Soft sigh. The contact is coming. Spirit is bringing that through today without hesitation. Not on a specific timeline I can give you, because the timeline belongs to the process they are moving through and to the specific moment when the process completes sufficiently for the reaching to feel right. But coming with the specific quality of something that has been prepared, that has been held until the conditions were right, rather than something impulsive or reactive or insufficient. When it arrives, when the phone finally does what you have been waiting for it to do, it will carry something, not just the contact, but what the silence was building toward. The honesty that the process produced, the clarity that the interior work clarified, the specific, present, nothing held back quality of someone who waited until they could bring you the real thing and is now finally in the position to do exactly that. Hold on a little longer. Not indefinitely. You are not being asked to organize your life around a silence that has no end. But a little longer, with the understanding that the silence has a reason and the reason is not what you feared. With the specific, grounded, I know what is actually happening quality of someone who has received the true story and is no longer living inside the false one. The quiet is ending. On the other side of a process that is closer to its completion than the duration of the silence has given you reason to believe. And what breaks the quiet when it finally breaks will be worth every difficult day of the not yet. Huh, they have not called. Not because you do not matter, because you matter enough that they are waiting until they can call in the way that you deserve. That distinction, small in its phrasing and enormous in what it means, is the whole reading. Carry it with you. Let it change how the quiet feels. And trust that what is coming when the quiet ends has been worth the building. If this reading found you at exactly the moment you needed it, if something here finally gave the silence a true explanation and replaced the false story with something you can actually rest in, stay close, subscribe, and come back. Because the story of what happens when the contact finally arrives, carrying everything the silence was preparing, is one worth witnessing all the way through. And the next reading will be there for every step of what the ending of the quiet makes possible.